Hi, doing this video. It's going to be kind of a book review. I've got a copy of Babylon to Timbuktu here, and after hearing, uh, some information read out of the book, um, particularly about the Jews that fled into Africa following the 70 AD siege of Jerusalem. I finally got a copy and read the book. Got it for I can't remember how much I paid for it. I want to say I didn't pay any more than $10 or $15 off Amazon for it. Soft copy. Don't know if it comes in a hard copy, but um, the book is pretty good. It's about 135 pages, 136 pages of information. There's a lot of references in the back. Um, there's scripture references, but there's also references to a lot of the other research work done by other individuals to substantiate that the information in here is not just something that the author Rudolph R. Windsor, not just something that he derived on his own, but it's something that is known fact by several researchers or a community of researchers. And the book, it does a good job of laying out um, history of the world. It doesn't get deep into that, but it lays out the history of the world from the Bible perspective, which we know the Bible is a history book and the most accurate history book there is, whereas general thought process is that man's been here on the earth tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands, if not millions of years, and there's no proof to substantiate that. That's just something someone made up, but there is documented proof of man's existence on this earth going back, 6, 7,000 years, which lines up with the Bible. Um, the book, the one thing that it did a good job, and I didn't know again what to expect when I got the book, but towards the latter part of the book, when it gets out of kind of some of the taking you from the beginning, or at least the Tower of Babel, to the Middle Ages, it does a great job of area by area in Africa, giving you an idea of the history for these areas and the what was going on in those areas during the Middle Ages that led up to the Atlantic slave trade. So a lot of those larger countries in North Africa, West Africa, it gives you a good idea of what transpired, as well as what transpired in Spain and Portugal uh, during the the expulsion of the Jews, and leading up to the time period in which Columbus sailed. So again, great read, and it really gives a good idea of how, in knowing that this slave trade was going to take place, how the Israelites were somewhat, to use the word the best word I could think of, herded to that area of Africa where the slave trade was going to take place. So, through wars and through, some famines and through, you know, getting that expulsion out of Spain, Portugal, where some people moved to that area, and the Muslims or pushed the Jews into that area, and while they got there, they thrived for a period of time, but it's like ongoingly something occurred that kept taking them down, uh, into the point in which they got into that position where they were somewhat, just for lack of a better term, ripe for being put into slavery. So, excellent book. It lines up, for the most part, with a lot of the stuff I've researched. It gave me a little bit better picture again of the Africa Jew presence, which outside of some areas, I was a little soft on the presence over in the eastern part of Africa. Kind of touched on that a little bit. And like anything, you want to, you don't want to take it for face value. You want to cross check it with other sources to confirm that it's accurate. But great job in putting this together. So with that, I got one scripture I'm going to bring out here, and it's Jeremiah chapter 29, verse 18. And I will pursue them with the sword, with famine, and with pestilence, and will deliver them to be removed to all the kingdoms of the earth, to be a curse and an astonishment and an hissing and a reproach among all the nations whither I have driven them. So this basically is, this basically kind of, even though it's in Jeremiah, reference back to Deuteronomy 28, where the curses that Israel was going to partake in. And so a lot of people read this and they say, oh, this is related to Babylon, because when you read further down, let's see, it starts talking about Nebuchadnezzar and the king of Babylon. And so, but that's not the case, because if you know the history, Nebuchadnezzar took the Jews to Babylon, and there they served captivity for roughly 80 years. But this talks about, removing them, basically delivering them to remove them to all kingdoms. So this talks about all kingdoms. And then further on, it talks about, them being a reproach amongst all nations. So this basically said, okay, this is the start of the process of getting them in that situation to be removed to all kingdoms and nations, right? To basically experience that curse. And the primary curse was the slavery, again, until the Israelites or Jews and Israelites were destroyed. So I think that's probably the one scripture that comes to mind as I read the book, because you could just kind of see where things were transpiring to put the Jews in that particular situation. So that's all I have. Leave a comment if you have questions.